The Miami Marlins have already begun their sell-off, trading Luis Arraez to the San Diego Padres. But for the Mariners, they probably need a little bit of help. So why not go to the team that is already 17 games below 500 in the Miami Marlins and see what kind of trades you can make in this video. We're going to go over my top 5 targets from the Miami Marlins. And of course, we are going to talk about everyone's favorite in Jazz Chisholm. This is going to be 3 hitters and 2 pitchers here because I think the Mariners do need some relief help with Matt Brash being out for the year, Gregory Santos coming back late, and Andres Munoz, he's just going to get run into the ground. But we also have some hitters because the Mariners offense is terrible. Also, Joe and I are giving away some bobbleheads and some autograph cards. I'm going to tell you guys about how to win those later on in this video. We'll go back and forth here between hitters and pitchers, and first we're going to start with Bryan De La Cruz, a left fielder for the Miami Marlins. So far in 2024, De La Cruz is hitting 257, 307, 454 with a 113 OPS, plus he has 9 home runs and 25 RBI. Throughout his career, De La Cruz has run pretty average numbers. His strikeout percentage is a little bit above average. He strikes out a little bit more often than not. He also walks less than the average player at 6.5% instead of 8.5%, but he homers in 3.3% of his at-bats instead of 3.1. De La Cruz is just 27 years old, and he won't be a free agent until 2028, so the Mariners would have him for quite a long time. And looking at his savant numbers here, there's nothing too crazy. His bat speed's kind of pedestrian along with his hard hit percentage and his launch angle. He does whiff, again, quite a bit and chases quite a bit. And in 2023, really the only thing that stood out was his launch angle sweet spot was at 41%, which goes to explain his 19 home runs that he hit last year, a career high for him. Now, the guy that we've talked about quite a bit is left-handed pitcher Tanner Scott. Scott is 29 years old and will be a free agent in 2025, so this would be a short-term kind of rental deal. So far in 2024, Scott has a 2 ERA in 18 games, 18 innings pitched with a 2.15 ERA plus. With that being said, however, his FIP is at 4.57, and that really comes from all the walks that Tanner Scott issues. In 18 innings, he's already issued 17 walks. To put that into perspective, last year Tanner Scott only issued 24 walks. He is only 7 away from hitting that mark so far in 2024, but he also pitched really well in 2023 to a 2.31 over 74 games. And Scott's savant page here is pretty impressive, but the only glaring issue is his first percentile in walk percentage. Otherwise, he allows some of the weakest contact in all of baseball in terms of exit velocity. He throws the ball at 96.4 miles an hour. The expected batting average off of Tanner Scott is 169. Nice. And obviously, he's a very, very good player. Again, you'd only have him for the rest of this season, but depending on what happens with Taylor Saucedo, maybe you want to add another lefty to this bullpen, Tanner Scott might be your guy. Just for comparison, this was Scott's savant page last year in 2023. Yeah, he was one of the best relievers in all of baseball. In terms of a package for Scott, again, this is just a half a season deal, so I'm not exactly sure what it would cost, but I don't think it would cost any of the prospects in your top, maybe even top 15. I probably wouldn't be giving up more than one prospect in the 15 to 10 range. Otherwise, maybe some guys in the 20 to 30 range. Overall, the Marlins should be looking for prospects. They shouldn't be looking for players that are kind of near MLB ready. So for Tanner Scott, they can have Walter Ford or something like that. 19 years old and rookie ball. Works for me. Now let's talk about another outfielder here in Jesus Sanchez. He's 26 years old and will be a free agent in 2028, just like Bryan De La Cruz. He's having a rough year so far, but he's a left-handed hitting power outfielder. So far in 2024, he's hitting 231, 282, 306 with a 67 OPS plus. Again, this is just in 39 games. But in 2023, he hit 253, 327, 450 with a 107 OPS plus. He hit 14 home runs with 52 RBI in 402 plate appearances. He does strike out a little bit more often than Bryan De La Cruz does on average, but he also walks about 2% more often than De La Cruz did and hits a home run in 3.7% of his at-bats. What stands out about Jesus Sanchez is his savant page because, as you can see, all of the numbers here are pretty high in terms of his expected batting average, expected slugging. He hits the ball hard. He has good bat speed in the 92nd percentile. His hard hit percentage, again, 90th percentile, but there's that chase rate right there and that whiff percentage and the walk rate as well. Again, the Marlins don't necessarily have to trade somebody like Jesus Sanchez or Bryan De La Cruz because honestly, they have him for a few more years. So if the Marlins think that they are in contention for this thing, maybe next year or the year after that, they probably want to hold on to these guys because these guys could be a big part of a winning team for them. But as of right now, if you're the Mariners, you should be looking at players like this because you kind of need to add some offense to this team. Now, with that being said, the outfield isn't necessarily the problem for the Mariners. Obviously, with Dominic Canzone coming back, Luke Raley's looked really good. Mitch Haniger's looked better recently, and honestly, so has Julio. The outfield might not be the problem for this team, but you can never have enough offense. And so I think adding one of De La Cruz or Jesus Sanchez at the right price. I'm not saying you go sell the farm for these guys or anything like that, but at the right price, it could make some sense. When I talk about selling the farm, Jazz Chisholm's the guy that comes up. But first, let me tell you how you guys can win something like this bobblehead. And that's because we're running Member May. If you become a member in the month of May and are a member on May 31st, you'll be entered in to win a bunch of cool prizes, including these bobbleheads, some autographed baseball cards, some Mariners tickets, etc. We're going to be doing that drawing on June 1st. So make sure you click the join button down below and become a member for $2.99 a month. Hang out with all of us. We have some really cool members-only videos over there. And speaking of the autographed cards that you can win, make sure on June 1st, you guys go to the Linwood Convention Center and hang out with the Washington State Sports Collectors Association. They're going to be having a convention there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 9 a.m. for VIP, and you can get in at 10 a.m. for just general admission. It's $15 for VIP, $5 for general admission, and free parking at the Linwood Convention Center. I'm going to try to go if I'm able to, so make sure, if you guys are around on June 1st, to go to the Linwood Convention Center and hang out with the WSSCA. Every time we talk about making a trade for some sort of offensive player, his name comes up because everybody likes Jazz. And I like Jazz Chisholm too, but I think the price to acquire him is way too much. And I think, and I mean this not necessarily in a bad way, but in terms of trade targets for the Mariners, he is the most overrated Mariners trade target I can remember. So far in 2024, Chisholm's hitting 250, 326, 411 for a 108 OPS, plus he has 5 homers and 21 RBI. This year, Jazz Chisholm is striking out at a 24.6% rate, although his career percentage is at 28.6. He strikes out quite a bit. He walks below average in his career, but he does homer more often than the average player at 4.2%. Now, Jazz is a second baseman, center fielder, and shortstop, so he's very versatile. Now, Jazz is a second baseman, center fielder, and shortstop. He's a very versatile player up the middle for you. He's 26 years old and would be a free agent in 2027, so the Mariners would have him for 2 more years. And looking at his Savant page, the only thing he does exceptionally well is his barrel percentage in the 85th percentile at 13% here. He also has a pretty fast sprint speed in the 83rd percentile at 28.4 miles per hour. His base running value is one of the highest in all of baseball in the 99th percentile here, but overall, Jazz Chisholm has very pedestrian numbers, and you're paying more for the name than you are for the actual production you'd get from the player. I mean, these were his Savant numbers last year when everybody was clamoring for the Mariners to go out and get Jazz Chisholm. He was whiffing in the 4th percentile at 35%. His strikeout rate was in the 10th percentile at 30.8%. Jazz Chisholm just isn't the guy that everyone thinks he is. And that's not to say that Chisholm won't become that guy at some point, but right now what the Mariners need and what it's going to cost you to get Jazz Chisholm for the next couple of years, it just is not worth it. You're probably starting with a package that is headlined by like Logan Evans or something like that, and honestly, I'm not willing to do that. To get Jazz Chisholm, you've got to give up probably at least one of the guys in your top 10, and I think that's what the Marlins should be asking for. That's what they will be asking for. But for the Mariners standpoint, it just makes no sense to go out and do that. And hey, maybe I get proved wrong and the Mariners acquire him for like Joe Bob down in like single A, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. Jazz Chisholm is going to cost way too much for the Seattle Mariners, and I don't think they should make that move. However, there is one guy that I feel like is flown under the radar that I think the Mariners need to go out and acquire. This is Andrew Nardi. He's 25 years old. He's a free agent in 2029. Andrew Nardi has been in the league for about 3 seasons now in 97 games, and his numbers this year don't look great, with a 6.23 ERA in 17 1/3 innings pitched, with a 69 nice ERA plus here. But that's not why we're looking at him. In 2023, at just the age of 24, Andrew Nardi had a 2.67 ERA in 63 games, 57 1/3 innings pitched. He had a 1.72 ERA plus. Nardi is a left-handed pitcher. Again, who knows when Sauce is coming back. Gabe Spire and Kirby Snead are the only lefties in that bullpen right now. Adding somebody like Andrew Nardi might be the move here. And when you look at his baseball savant numbers in 2023, when he had a really good year last year, look at that. He has the 99th percentile in average exit velocity. His chase rate's in the 84th percentile. His K percentage is in the 92nd percentile, and his hard hit percentage is in the 98th percentile. Basically, Andrew Nardi doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, and he allows the defense to make the plays behind him. He also does strike out guys at a 92nd percentile clip at 30.8% in his K percentage. This year, the numbers are a little bit different here. His ground ball percentage is just in the 3rd percentile. So he's giving up a lot more balls hit in the air, but he still is getting a lot of chase on his pitches. His average exit velocity is still pretty good, and his K percentage is still pretty good. For Nardi, again, it's early on in the season, but I think, of course, we know how good the Mariners are with pitchers. There's a good chance they could turn him into an elite weapon at the back end of their bullpen. For me, it really is these 2023 numbers, though, because look how good he was in 2023. If the Mariners can even get like 80% of that, they'd be getting a really good player in Andrew Nardi. Again, he's a reliever. You don't need to give up the farm for him, and the Mariners need some help back there at the back end of that bullpen. As for a package for a lot of these guys, I'm not going to pretend to know what it's going to take, because who knows, especially at this point in the season, what the Marlins want for a lot of these guys, because most of them are under club control for a little while. But Andrew Nardi, I think, is the guy that I want the most. If I had to take 2 players from this team, it would be Jesus Sanchez and Andrew Nardi. There was also talk about the Mariners trading for Pete Alonso at the trade deadline. Do you guys think that could happen? Do you guys even think that's a good idea? Well, check out this video on the screen now and tell me what you think. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go freaking Mariners.